Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen specialized in bringing impossible creatures to life through the process of stop-motion animation and cemented themselves among the greatest and most influential filmmakers of all time. They crafted some of the most enduring and marvelous beasts to ever terrorize the screen, even as technology advanced into our modern day and their methods became obsolete. Their creations continued to rival and outdo Hollywood's most expensive and glamorous monsters. To fully appreciate the genius of O'Brien and Harryhausen, one must first understand their technique. Film is a series of pictures taken in rapid succession, typically 24 per second. When these pictures are run through a projector or digital software, the people and things within the picture appear to move. Stop motion animation is a method of faking the filming process. The animator takes an action figure sized model of whatever strange being he wants to bring life to, poses it in front of the camera, and takes a picture. Then, the animator slightly moves the model and takes another picture. This is repeated until there are enough pictures that, when all played together, they create the illusion that the model is moving. Willis O'Brien was the first filmmaker to utilize stop motion to create realistic creatures that could be combined with live action footage of actors. He introduced this concept with a multitude of short films in the 1910s, all fueled by his love of dinosaurs, including The Dinosaur and the Missing Link and The Ghost of Slumber Mountain. After achieving success with his shorts, O'Brien took his art to an entirely new level with the 1925 adaptation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's classic novel, The Lost World. With a runtime of roughly 2 hours and extensive dinosaur footage, including a fantastic sequence of a brontosaurus demolishing London, The Lost World brought cinematic adventure and action to the screen on a scale never seen before. Unfortunately, O'Brien would be unable to secure work for the next half-decade after The Lost World, a struggle that would last throughout his life. But his perseverance was rewarded when producer Marion C. Cooper hired him onto the creative team for a certain 1933 film that would prove to be the great triumph of O'Brien's career and quite possibly one of the greatest films ever made, King Kong. King Kong is a tour de force. It has action, adventure, romance, and terror at a height never before achieved by film. It was released shortly after the addition of sound to film overturned the entire industry. Many brilliant actors and filmmakers from the silent era were replaced by theater kids, and much of the innovation and creativity that defined the great silent films was, for a time, lost and replaced by stiff productions that were often little more than stage plays with a camera. In this period of transition, King Kong showed the world everything a moving picture could be. King Kong would also play a critical role in the life of a 13-year-old moviegoer named Ray Harryhausen. This success would not have been conceivable without Willis O'Brien, who instilled Kong and his monstrous co-stars with vigor, power, ferocity, and soul. Sadly, O'Brien was only able to realize a handful of stop-motion films during the rest of his career. Son of Kong, Mighty Joe Young, The Animal World, The Black Scorpion, and The Giant Behemoth. These films provided only a small glimpse into O'Brien's massive imagination. But O'Brien's legacy and the art of stop motion would not die with him, for when that certain 13-year-old saw King Kong in the theater, he discovered the passion of his life. As soon as he learned of stop motion, Ray Harryhausen began constructing and animating models in his parents' garage. Fatefully, Harryhausen's childhood home was located in Los Angeles, California, and this proximity to Hollywood gave the high school-aged Ray the opportunity to meet O'Brien in person. They became close friends, and O'Brien mentored the young Harryhausen in the art of filmmaking. While preparing for Mighty Joe Young, a film that reunited the team behind King Kong, O'Brien realized he needed assistant animators to aid him with the film's elaborate special effects sequences. For his lead assistant, he chose Ray Harryhausen. Mighty Joe Young was Harryhausen's break into the film industry, and shortly afterward he established himself as an independent special effects artist with a succession of science fiction films: The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, It Came from Beneath the Sea, Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and 20 Million Miles to Earth. Unlike O'Brien, Harryhausen figured out how to achieve his high-quality special effects on a limited budget. This was the key to his success, and by the time he retired, he had been the special effects technician for 14 action-packed feature films full of fantastical creatures. Although his talents contributed greatly to sci-fi, the genre Harryhausen loved most was fantasy, and this is where the bulk of his work was concentrated. From 1958 to 1981, he partook in 3 Sinbad films, 2 Greek epics, 3 adaptations of classic literature, and 2 tributes to the dinosaur films of O'Brien. As a method of portraying non-existent creatures, stop motion faced a plethora of competing practices. From the very beginning, puppets, costumes, actors in elaborate makeup, and even animals disguised as monsters fiercely rivaled stop motion animators. In the 1980s, advancements in animatronics gave an edge to live action effects. Finally, in the 1990s, computer generated imagery, also known as CGI, provided a method of animation that could produce realistic effects far quicker than stop motion with no physical limitations. Appropriately, the end of stop motion's relevance was marked by a dinosaur movie, Jurassic Park. Despite these rival techniques, and the many creative and iconic monsters realized through them, the creatures of O'Brien and Harryhausen still stand out and endure above them. Part of this is the stop motion animation, which had significant advantages over the other methods, even CGI. Stop motion models were not limited by the dimensions of a suit actor or the number of puppeteers available. They could have a far greater range of movement than a costume or animatronic, and their physical presence gave them an amount of depth and texture extremely difficult, if not impossible, to match on a computer. But it wasn't the method of stop motion alone that made O'Brien and Harryhausen special. There are many stop motion monster movies from other animators that have become nearly forgotten, even among fans of the genre. Many of these forgotten films fail to match the quality of the costumes and makeup effects of their contemporaries. The charm and merits of stop motion were not enough on their own to leave a cultural impact. There was something far deeper going on with the creatures of O'Brien and Harryhausen. Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen are still remembered and cherished today because they instilled their films with intelligence, attention to detail, and understanding of the real world and character unmatched in the art of film. These qualities came through in the way their creatures appeared, moved, and interacted with the worlds they existed in. O'Brien and Harryhausen's creature designs alone were incredible. They were full of detail, yet simple enough that they could be drawn by a child and still immediately recognizable. Even though their appearances were fantastical, their textures and physical traits were true to the natural world. A common criticism of modern monster designs is they all look drearily similar when put side by side. Try applying this to O'Brien, who created 3 giant gorillas, Kong, Kiko, and Joe Young. Even though they are all the same basic concept, each has a distinct appearance that displays their unique character traits. Kong looks grizzled, old, and brutal. Kiko looks young, immature, and innocent. Joe Young has the youthful appearance of Kiko, but in his face and body language is the maturity and compassion that come from his upbringing among humans. Harryhausen, too, was a genius at subtle, visual storytelling. In Greek mythology, which Ray studied closely, Medusa was a beautiful woman transformed into a horrible monster after desecrating a temple of the goddess Athena. When designing the character for Clash of the Titans, Harryhausen gave Medusa's grotesque, twisted face a strong, beautiful bone structure. Contrast this with the 2010 remake, where Medusa has a supermodel face that only becomes ugly as a defense mechanism against attackers. The monstrous creations of O'Brien and Harryhausen look incredible as drawings or still photographs, but when they are put into motion, they overflow with life and energy. The great silent actors knew how to wordlessly express complicated emotions, and this is exactly what O'Brien and Harryhausen's creations do. Just by watching the detailed and often unpredictable movements of the creatures, the audience can fully understand and even relate to their motivations, thought processes, and feelings. It hurts to see Kong riddled with bullets from the biplanes, or Trog be clawed to death by the saber-toothed tiger. A critical thing to understand about Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen is they never anthropomorphized their creatures. This is an extremely rare and important quality that greatly distinguishes their work. The vast majority of movie monsters do not behave like animals. Some characters, like the Frankenstein monster, are, at their core, human-like, so their behavior is natural and thematically appropriate. But when monsters like Godzilla, the Gill Man in the shape of water, and even later depictions of King Kong are shown moving and expressing themselves the same way people do. It ruins them. In Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, Kong is nothing more than a really hairy man, and it's depressing to watch. No matter how much emotion and character O'Brien and Harryhausen instilled in their creations, they never became humanized. Though the Cyclops in Seventh Voyage of Sinbad is humanoid and uses tools, it still retains a simple, animal-like thought process. King Kong is a tragic character because he is infatuated with a human woman despite being completely inhuman. The remakes, where he gives his abducted beauty waterfall showers and takes her ice skating, miss the point of his tragedy by portraying him as a misunderstood gentle giant. Even when movies don't blatantly humanize their monsters, they still exaggerate and glamorize the creature's behavior. Think about the professional wrestling style fight choreography common to the Godzilla franchise, or the massive, over the top battles in Pacific Rim. Animals don't fight that way. This is why it is so refreshing to watch the highly realistic tooth and claw fight scenes in O'Brien and Harryhausen films. The third key quality of the stop motion of O'Brien and Harryhausen is the way in which their creatures interact with both their environment and the human characters. Both men made a point of finding ways for their animated creatures to directly interact with the live action footage they were inserted into. Whether it is a banana tossed by an actor to Joe Young or Cowboy's lasso roping Guanji around the neck, these connections between the real world and the animating table break the barrier separating reality and fiction. This is aided by the fact that the stop motion creatures and the live actors often appear on screen simultaneously. Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen combined imagination, innovation, realism, expression, and nearly every trick in filmmaking to create some of the most awe-inspiring creature action ever put on film. Their work outperformed all of their contemporaries, and still stands tall against their successors. If the viewer wants proof for this claim, my 7 and 5-year-old cousins, who have been raised on brainless, fast-paced cartoons and modern special effects, who are already cynical enough to point out the strings on a dragon puppet, recently saw the seventh voyage of Sinbad for the first time. They were mesmerized. They never got bored and never laughed at the old special effects. As soon as it was over, they wanted to see it again. If ever there was a testament to a film's enduring quality, that was it. In a strange phenomenon that sometimes occurs among outdated filmmaking techniques, the art of Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen has aged in reverse. Now, when a wide selection of the most technologically sophisticated special effects films is easier than ever to consume, those old stop motion movies hold more value and more charm than the best Hollywood can offer. Maybe this is because the amount of life and spirit Willis O'Brien and Ray Harryhausen imbued into their little stop-motion models resulted in on-screen creatures that were more alive than anything living ever can be.